Gong Xian. There's a Taoist priest named Gong who doesn't have a name and doesn't know who the locals are. One time, he asked to see Lu Wang, and the janitor refused to notify him. And when a palace eunuch came out, the Taoist monk asked him to meet him. The eunuch saw him poor and dirt and drove him away. But the Taoist army is back soon, and the eunuchs are angry, sending men to fight and die. When I arrived at the unoccupied spot, the Taoist priest smiled and pulled out 100 liang of gold, asking the chaser to reply to the eunuch. Just say that I am not meeting Lu Wang, and heard that the flowers, trees and pavilions in the backyard of the palace are the most beautiful views in the world. If I could show you this, I would be satisfied in my life. Then he brings him some money, and the man returns with joy. The eunuch was also delighted, and the conductor went in through the back door of the palace and visited all the sights. The Taoists each followed up the stairs. The eunuch looked out the window and was pushed by the Taoist priests, only to feel his body falling from the upstairs. His waist entangled with Hoso Fuji and suspended in the air. And he looked down dark and dizzy, and Hoso Fuji was crashing. He was so scared. He screamed loudly. A couple of informants came in and they were horrified. Seeing him high above the ground, I went upstairs, and I tied the rattan to the window, trying to save him by wagging the rattan, but I was afraid that the rattan would break. Searching for Taoist siege, but nowhere to be seen. There's nothing I can do. I have to tell King Lu. Lu Wang was surprised to see it himself. It's a place downstairs where people lay thatch and cotton timbers to cut off the rattan. Just laid downstairs, the sado popped. The eunuch was within a foot of the ground. Everyone couldn't help laughing. Lu Wangming asked the monk to visit him, and when he learned that he lived at Shang Shukai's home, he sent someone to ask him if you had returned. On her way home, she happened to meet a Taoist. I'll take him to see King Lu. Lu Wang hosted a banquet in honor of Taoist priests. I'm a wild man from the mountains, Taoist said. I don't know what else to do. Let's give a group of singers to live with. Come on, take a beauty out of your sleeve and put it on the floor. The beauty kudos to King Lu. Toshi ordered the beauty to play Yaokai banquet for Lu Wang. The beauty opens with a few words, and the Taoist maiden pulls out another man who calls himself the maiden. After a while, Dong Shuangzheng, Sufi Qiang and other fairies appeared successively, and finally, the weaving woman came out to see her, and lay a coat of heaven, and the palace was suddenly bright and bright. Lu, suspecting that Tianyu was a fake, he wanted to see it. The Taoist rushed to say, no, Lu Wang doesn't listen. It's a seamless garment. It's not something you can do, the Taoist said with displeasure. I faithfully flatter the king, so that I can borrow the emperor's clothes from the emperor for the time being. If today's clothes are tarnished by tackiness, how can I return them to my master? Lu Wang thought the fairies must be real, and wanted to keep one or two. But when you look closely, they were all the singers in his own palace. Doubting that the songs they had just sung were not familiar to them, the singers did not even know themselves. The Taoist priest burned the coat, put the ash in his sleeve and searched again, but nothing. Lu Wang therefore has great respect for the Taoist monks and wants to keep him in the house. The Taoist monk said, I'm used to it. This palace is like a cage. It's not as free as living in Shokai's house. Since then, the Taoist clergymen have been in and out of the palace, but they must return every night. Sometimes I keep him, sometimes I stay. Taoists often perform 4-season, wood upside-down games at banquets. Lu asked him, do you really hear that cactus don't forget the relationship between men and women? The Taoist replied, maybe, but I'm not a cactus, so my heart is dead. One night, the priest lived in the house, and King Lu asked a young, attractive prostitute to visit him. The prostitute entered the house, screamed a few times, no one answered, lit a light, and the priest sat in bed with his eyes closed like a dead man. Shake him, eyes open and close. Shake him again, and snoring. Push him, fall down again, sleep in bed, full of sound. The prostitute flicked his forehead with a hand and made a sound like an iron hammer, and rushed to reciprocate. King Lu let people stab him with needles. Needles don't get in, push him, he's too heavy to shake. More than a dozen people were called in to lift him and toss him under the bed, like a jack of rock on the ground. After dawn, Taoist still sleeps on the floor. The Taoist awakened with a laugh and said, "I'm so dead. I don't even know if I fell out of bed." The prostitutes used to press the Taoist's seat while he sat and slept. The prostitutes were just soft on time, and then hard as a rock. Taoishi lives at Sang Soo Che's house and often doesn't come back in the middle of the night. The fashion show locked the door, and when the door opened tomorrow, the Taoist each was asleep. Shang Shukai and a singer named Huj were once very close. They swore to be husband and wife. Huj sang very well and performed exceptionally well. Lu Wang called in the palace to serve himself when he heard Huj was famous. After that, Huj and Shang Xiu cut off their relationship, and although they often missed each other, they could not meet each other. One evening, Shang asked the Taoist monk, "Have you seen Huj at the palace?" Dao Shi said, "I've seen all those singers before, but I don't know who Huj is." Shang Xiu has just described Huj's age and looks, and the Taoist clergyman thinks of it. Shang begged him to send a message when he went again, and the Taoist laughed and said, "I am a person from outside, and I cannot send you a letter or message." Shang begged, and the Taoist cleric unfolded his sleeve and said, "If you must see Huj, please get in my sleeve." When Shang looked into his sleeves, he saw that the interior looked like a house. And then he went inside, where the light was so bright that he was as wide as a room. And there were tables and chairs and bed nets everywhere, and he was not bored at all inside. The Taoists each came to play chess with King Lu. When he saw Huj coming, he pretended to dust himself with his robe and put Huj in his sleeve, but no one else noticed. When Shang Xiu was sitting alone, she fell from the roof to a beautiful woman. They're surprised. "You hugged me. You made out." Shukai said, "Today is a wonderful day, and you can't forget it. Let's come to poetry." After the conversation, I wrote on the wall, "The house of royalty seems to have disappeared for too long." And Huj continued, "Once again, Xiaolang will meet again." Zukai wrote, "A great deal of money has been saved in his sleeve." And Huj continued, "A woman who has lost his mind must be treated as a woman." At the end of the question, 5 people came in, all in octagon hats and light red clothes, and they were strangers. When they don't make a sound, they kick Wiki out and go. Shang Xiu was so scared. "I don't know what happened." The Taoist returns to Hidden Eye's home, calls Hidden Eye out, and asks him about it. Hidesaki kept it a secret. He didn't say it all. The Taoist smiled and turned his sleeves over for him to see before the show showed a hint of writing. It's as fine as a poem. It's a poem written by him. It took more than 10 days for Shang to ask the Taoist to take him there again. He went there 3 times. I already felt the stitches moving in my stomach, so I was so worried that I had to tighten my waist with a belt, Huj told Hidena. But the crown prince has many eyes. If one day in labor, children cry, hide where? Please consult with Gong Daoshi and ask him to try to save me when he sees me at the fork. Shang Shukai said yes. When I got back, I couldn't get up on my knees. And the Taoist priest picked him up and said, "I know everything you have to say. Don't worry, your family depends on it. How dare I help, but from now on, you can't go back to the palace. That's why I'm paying you back. I'm not in a relationship." A few months later, the Taoist priest returned from the outside, laughing and saying, "I brought you your son. Get the baby back." Miss Shang's wife, who is exceptionally virtuous, is about to turn 30 and has given birth to several children and only one son. She had a daughter recently. She died right after the full moon. I heard Sang Soo Jae say it was a surprise to come out. A priest takes a baby out of his sleeve. "Hey, the umbilical cord's not broken. You're sleeping so well." The baby cried when Shukai's wife picked her up and held her in her arms. Blood spilled on clothes is the biggest taboo of the Taoists. Taoists said, taking off their clothes. 20 years of old things have to be thrown away for you today. Shang Xiu only changed a new dress for the Taoist priest, who told him, "Don't throw away the old clothes. Burn the ashes and eat them. It can cure obstructions and abort a stillborn child." Shang Shukai kept it in his heart. On the road, Shang Shukai stayed at home for some time and suddenly said to Shukai, "You should leave some things for yourself in the old clothes you have in your collection. Don't forget that I'm dead." Sang Sujie thinks the Taoist word is unfortunate. The Taoist turned and laughed. I'm dying, the king told Lu. Lu Wang was surprised, saying, there is a certain number of life and death. What can we say? King Lu doesn't believe me. King left him. The Taoist master had just played a game of chess and was rushing to leave, and Lu Wang pulled him in. The Taoists each asked for a rest outside, and Lu Wang agreed. When King Lu went to see him, the earth was dead. King Lu prepared a fine coffin and buried him according to the local etiquette. Shang cried and hung himself in front of the grave, realizing that what the Taoist had said was what he had told him beforehand. The old clothes left behind by the Taoist priests were used to promote life, and they were very spiritual. And the people who asked for the help of the Shangs kept on coming. At first, the cuffs were cut, stained with blood, but then the cuffs ran out, and the neckline was cut, effectively. Recalling the Taoist advice, he suspected that his wife would eventually have trouble giving birth, and cut a clot of blood from her chin to hide it. Later, Lu Wang had a wife who couldn't give birth for 3 days, and doctors couldn't help her. Someone told Lu Wang that Shang's Yu could only be cured, and Lu Wang immediately called him into the house. The concubine was born with just 1 dose. Lu Wang was very happy, and gave Shang Shukai silver satin, which was totally rejected by Shang Zhu. When Lu Wang asked him what he wanted, Zukai said, I dare not speak. Lu Wang asked him to say that Zukai Kotodan said, if you really want to give me a prize, please give me Huj, a singer, and I will be satisfied. Lu summoned Huj and asked her age, and Huj said, I'm 18 years old and it's been 14 years since I joined the government. Lu Wang felt that Huj was too old, so he called all the singers and Ren Shangshu chose them. What a nerd! Did you two get married 10 years ago? Lu laughs. Shang Shukai told the truth. Lu Wang prepared his cars and horses, and still gave Huij the silver and satin Shang Shukai had resigned as dowry and sent them to his home. Hai's son is named Shu Sheng, taking the symphony of Zhu and Zhu. He was 11 years old. Shang Shukai's family always remembers the grace of Gong Xianren, and every time he clears his grave, he sacrificed his life to Gong Xianren. A long-time tourist in Sichuan met Gong Daoshi on the way. The Taoist clerk produced a book saying, this is from the royal family. I came in a hurry and didn't have time to return it, please take it. The guests came back to hear that the Taoists each had died long ago, so they couldn't rush to see Lu Wang. Sang Su just found out and played for him. When Lu Wang opened the book, he borrowed it from a priest. Lu became suspicious, digging up the Taoist grave and looking at it, but it was an empty coffin. Later, Shang's eldest son died young, relying on Zhu to support his family and inherit the family. On the other hand, Shang admired the prescience of Gong Daoshi.
Alright, this story has come to an end. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you.